Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm checking out the Eachine Racer 130. This is a RTF brushless micro. It has got 1105 4000 kV motors. It has got 10 amp ESCs here, and we also have a NACE 32 board here with a buzzer installed on it. And it's an all-in-one carbon frame. I really like how they have built it. We have got a 700 TV line FPV cam up front. We have a 300 milliwatt 40 channel VTX at the back, and then we have got a sleeve dipole antenna for that, which will be good for crashes but not so good for reception. This one comes with a 3S battery. It is a 450 milliamp battery with a JST connector, but interestingly this one also comes with a 720p action cam that runs at 30 frames per second. You put in the micro SD card at the back there, so it does not come with that. And then this powers off the actual battery here of the quadcopter, so you don't need to charge this up, which is pretty cool. It uses a micro lossy connector there, and that just connects up there. And you can also see that we have a strap going around the top as well, and that secures in the camera and the battery as well. The entire thing weighs 145 grams, which is not bad. We have got 3-inch propellers on here. These are 3020 propellers. So this guy is competing with the Taro 130. It's a very similar setup. Now this one came with Clean Flight installed on it, unfortunately, but I think to do it justice I'm going to install Betaflight onto it. Now there is a bootloader button just right next to the buzzer here, so if you end up bricking it then you can press that, so that's good. We have got a USB connector on the side there, so we can configure it in Clean Flight or Betaflight, which is quite nice. We have this sort of aluminium style protector for the camera up the front. You can see here that you can alter the angle of the camera by about 12 degrees. However, you cannot alter the angle of the HD cam. So it's best really when filming with this to have that camera flat. So you're not going to get loads of speed up, but if you wanted to, you could say put some foam underneath the camera here at the front and then get a larger angle on it if you wanted to do that. Now the camera does not start recording straight away. We have a very tiny little button there and you just press it once, and we have a flashing light on the back, and then it starts recording video. We have a 110 degree angle on the lens there and a 130 degree angle on the FPV cam, which is pretty nice in both instances. So this guy up here, it's sort of mimicking what the 808-16 can do, and it also records sound as well. And if you are interested, you could definitely put a Mobius Mini on top of here. However, both the RTF version of this, which I have, and the ARF version comes with this camera, so that would be an extra expense if you went and got the Mobius Mini, but it definitely could carry it. It wouldn't be able to take a 4-cell battery, so this is probably the biggest battery that it could take, about 450 milliamp. I was getting a 5-minute flight time with this setup, which is pretty respectable considering we've got a camera on there, but it's fairly lightweight, as I say, 145 grams, ready to fly. One problem that I found is that it's really cool how all this connects, but you end up with a lot of wires bunched up at the back, so you can sort of just tuck them away in places, but I found that a little bit of a pain. Also, you can slide this back and forth to get the CG correct, which obviously is going to be bang in the center there. Another thing I found a little bit of a problem is because we have this stack of stuff here and the dipole antenna at the back there, when the quadcopter's facing you, it completely blocks almost all of the signal. So you get a great reception flying away from yourself and at the side, but then when you fly back towards yourself, you get a bit of breakup, and I will show you that later on the flight footage. You can see there that we have got a little LED on the back. It's just one there, and we have got some different configurations for colors. So this was red out of the box, but you can flip these dip switches here to change the LED to various different colors. It does not have the DIN connected, so you are just stuck with this combination here, but it's still a nice thing. The ESCs are flashed with BL Halley. However, when I put it in the configurator, it doesn't really recognize them, but that's fine anyway because the direction and everything is set up already. But if you wanted to change some of those things, you probably have to find the correct version to do that, and I was not able to do that for this video. So as this is the RTF version, you get given a transmitter. This of course is a rebranded FlySky i6. This is the Eachine version, so you have to put 4 AA batteries in the back there, and you can't change any of the settings out of the box. So this is the mode 1 version, so you can select mode 1 or mode 2 version, which is great. Out of the box we have the modes set up here on a 3-position switch. I think it was set up to have angle, horizon and acro, but I've completely changed that in Betaflight. And then this switch was also set up, but it wasn't doing anything, which is a shame because I think they could have at least taken advantage of having a buzzer under there and have a lost model alarm. So what I did is, if you press in both of the trims at the bottom there, then that will unlock the menu. So I went into the setup there and changed one of the switches. So I changed channel 6 to switch A, which is this one here. So I've changed it now so that this arms my quadcopter, because I like to have it armed on a switch. And then here I have changed it to have angle and then acro, and then this one is acro and buzzer. So I only really use angle and acro these days anyways, not horizon. And then if I have a crash or whatever, I can disarm and switch that on as the lost model alarm. Everything else is stock though, of course, and I have tried the failsafe out of the box and that works no problem, so that's fine. As this is the RTF, you get a lot of stuff with this one. So we've got a bag of stuff here. Let's take a look at the contents. It's in one of these little resealable bags here. So we have got some cable ties here. And then we have got Velcro pads here. And more sticky pads. And another spare strap. And then we have got a Allen key for taking stuff apart and also putting the props on. And then I'm not sure what this is. Is this like a little... I'm not sure. What is that? Doesn't mention what it is. Is it to sort of clean the wires up at the back? Well, it looks like something should fit in there though. Like some wires or something. And as well, you get a nice manual which tells you pretty much everything that you need to know. It doesn't tell you like clean flight setup or anything like that, but the idea is that you just take this one out of the box. That's interesting. It says the weight's 150 grams. It's not. I've measured it. It's 145 grams. So looks like they have overestimated it there, which is unusual. They usually underestimate it, don't they? So yeah, nice manual, tells you all the specs, tells you how to charge it, etc. Yeah, so nice manual. And then you also get given a lanyard, a Eachine neck strap, which is nice. You get given this now. This is the bag that the camera came in here, and this camera, I guess, is a separate item that they have put in with this, because we have got this servo connector here. So I guess that is if you want to power this camera off your receiver or something like that. And then we just have the micro lozzy. So I imagine if you are using this camera, it looks like we have a signal wire there as well, so maybe you can start the recording from a PWM value. I can't on this version, of course, because the receiver is just a PPM receiver. It's slotted in under there. I can't see where the antenna is for that. Yeah, it's just a very tiny antenna here. So the range, you're probably going to be good for maybe 200 meters, if that. I imagine this 300 milliwatt VTX will overpower it when it comes to range. So yeah, got some information on the camera here as well. It records in AVI format. It takes up to a 32 gigabyte micro SD card there. Tells you all the dimensions and the current, etc. And it's a 3 to 5 volt. So yeah, you could reuse this camera if you like the results from it. Let's see what you get next. We have got a B3 AC charger, very cheap charger. Charges off the balance port here, so yeah, that shouldn't be too bad of charge time with one of those. Then we have got a spare set of props, so I should talk about this because the props didn't come fitted out of the box. You have to put them on, that's what that Allen key is for. But they do fit in the box that it comes in, and I will show you that in a bit. But yeah, you have to tighten those up. Spare set of props in there, and a couple of spare screws as well. It would have been nice to have more spare screws, I think, but there you go. So you're also given, I thought this was really interesting, a set of NiCad batteries, and I'm guessing there for the transmitter they are rechargeable NiCads, and well, I'm using my own anyways, but I guess you literally have everything that you need to have to get it going. But do you though? You don't have an FPV receiver. So of course I'm going to be using my Fat Shark Dominator HD3s because they have a built-in DVR, so I can show you what is going on with the FPV feed. I'm using a Diversity receiver here. It's the Fat Shark Diversity one. We have a on-way antenna, a Menace RC Invader patch antenna. I use it on the channel all the time. And of course, if you were buying a setup like this, you'd go much cheaper, such as the Eachine 007 that I reviewed recently. I really like those goggles, or the visor style sort of thing. So this is the case that everything comes in. It's a really nice case, and as you can see, everything fits in there no problem. They give you absolutely tons of this foam, too much really. I've had to throw a lot of it away, but yeah, you can fit a lot of stuff in there. It's a really nice case. Also, if you're after some spare batteries, these work very well. These are the Turnigy Nanotech 450 milliamp high C batteries, and I get about the same flight time out of these as I do the stock one there, but I got a few of these, so I'll be using this with it as well as the stock battery. But next, let's go into Betaflight and I'll show you some of the settings in there. So here we are in the Betaflight configurator. You get this from the Chrome App Store, of course, and as I say, this model came with CleanFlight installed on it. However, I thought this one was worthy of putting Betaflight on there, especially as we have that easy accessible boot button if I brick anything. So in order to flash Betaflight, I just went into the firmware flasher. I've got the quadcopter plugged into the computer via the USB lead. There you can see I've got NAS selected, and then down here I would just choose the latest version of the firmware. Now this configuration worked for me with the manual baud rate at 25600, and I just loaded the firmware online and then flashed the firmware and it worked. However, I know a lot of people struggle installing Betaflight. You know, you get a failed port up here, driver issues, all sorts of things, so I'll put a install guide in the description for Betaflight. But for me, this one was really easy. So you can see it says COM16 up the top there, so I'm going to connect to it. And I'm just going to enable expert mode, and I'll just show you the settings that I use because I believe I got some good settings out of it. So in the ports, we don't need anything on the Serial RX because it's a PPM receiver for FlySky. So let's go into the configuration here. It's set up as Quad X, no board alignment, which is fine. And then we have one shot 125 up here. I've got motor stop switched off and disarm the motors regardless of the throttle. That's because I'm arming on an aux channel. Then we have the min throttle, which I actually haven't touched, but it is fine. That's the stock value anyway, 1070, and the max throttle 2000 there. So if I just scroll down here, we've got the VBAT enabled for the buzzer. However, I tend to find with these smaller models the VBAT isn't that useful and tends to go off at the top of your throttle. So I have reduced these values here, and I don't really go off the buzzer. I usually just use the buzzer as a lost model alarm. So I've reduced the warning voltage down here to 3.3 and the minimum cell voltage to 3 because you can rescue a battery from there, but you know, you could do some damage. I tend to find with these smaller batteries though that it's fine to have the voltage buzzer go off lower. Otherwise you could take off and it instantly go off, and I find that annoying, so that's what I've changed it to. Everything else here is standard. So if we go into the failsafe here, I've set it to drop. Go into PID tuning, and these are my PIDs. You're welcome to use them if you like. I found it flew really nicely with this, and then I have the RC rate at 1 and the super rate at 0.8. Everything else here is just stock Betaflight in there. So in the receiver tab, you do have to have the battery of the quadcopter plugged in order to power up the receiver, so make sure you have the props off when you do that. I changed the channel map to AETR, which is correct for FlySky. We don't have any RSSI information here, of course. And then into the modes, this is what I changed as I explained earlier. I've got the arming on that 2-position switch here. I've got angle mode here, and then acro over here, and then lastly beeper for lost model alarm. And then finally I'll just go into the version here just so you can see which one I'm using there. It's 3.15. Okay, let's go and take this thing for a fly. Okay, let's go for a takeoff with this guy. Gets out of the grass quite nicely. I am hearing already some slight vibrations, and I think that's a characteristic of these propellers, because that did happen with the Taro that I flew, and it had the same props, but not too much of a problem. Plenty of power there for a 3S, even carrying that camera. Let's bring it in close and do a punch for you. See that LED on the back nicely. It's definitely vibrating, but it doesn't seem to affect how it flies. Flies really smoothly. Plenty of punch there to get you out of trouble. Okay, let's try acro mode. Seems okay. Yeah. Can't see any initial problems, but then again, I never can at this stage. Usually when you do the FPV, you can tell if there's any issues. Seems to roll nice though. And the backflip with plenty of power to pull out. So how about I come in for a landing and I'll try and do some FPV with it, and we'll also see what that camera's like as well. So here is some of the FPV footage. I'll switch back and forth between the FPV cam and the HD cam on board. So the FPV cam is the one with the black bars at the side, and the HD cam is where it's full screen. So straight away I could see that the vibrations of those props were affecting punch outs to the point where it would actually wobble from side to side because of the vibrations. It wasn't the tune. The tune was pretty good, as you can see there. It's snappy in every angle, and it didn't spoil it too much actually, the vibrations, because there wasn't like a load of jello on the screen, as you could see there again as I throttled up. The only thing that you do get, and I mentioned it before, is look when it's pointed towards you, that antenna doesn't get seen very well by the receiver and it loses signal a little bit. You see, I can do my 4-point roll there and there's no hesitation, no wobbles or anything like that. But yeah, this is the problem when it faces towards the camera. And again, another punch out, but flies upside down, no problems. And you know, there's just a breakup from that antenna really, and I guess you could try and place it a little bit higher up perhaps, move it around a little bit. I have to say, I was impressed with how it flew. Flew very smooth, it was easy to tune. It was a good flight time, but you can see again, pointing towards myself and almost completely lose the picture there. I was really impressed with the HD camera. I would say it's very close to the 808-16 for sure, and it wasn't affected by those props vibrating. And what I would do about that is I think I'd just stick different props on, maybe the gem fans or maybe some of the Rotor X props. I need to try that, and I think you would get a better result, because you can see here, able to do acro absolutely perfect, but you can see the slight wobble when I go onto the throttle. And I think it is a little bit more severe than the Taro 130, which did do that, but you did get more vibrations through the camera with that one. But anyways, I'm really enjoying flying this one. I'm able to thread the needle. You know, it's not crazy fast with that flat camera angle. We do have a little bit of the red aluminium coming into shot on the FPV cam there, but it's not too bad at all. Again, you can see the thing wobbling around under throttle there, and a little bit of interference as well, a couple of black lines coming from it as well, but nothing debilitating. I think really the best thing to do with this is to stick a cloverleaf antenna on there, which is what I basically said about the Taro 130 as well. That's another good way to tell whether it was tuned nicely. Do it in a sort of knife edge and see if it stays there, and this one does. So there's no way you could tune out those wobbles, I don't think, even with TPA or something like that. Yeah, I think it's a good package. I think the RTF package is about £154, which isn't bad, and then you could stick on top, say, some cheap £40 FPV goggles, and it'd be a pretty good setup, I think. So there you go, that is my review of the Eachine Racer 130. I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.